Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my booktube channel. Since quarantine got me back into reading and I have literally no self-control, I ended up buying a lot of books that I haven't had a chance to read yet. So today I will be doing a book haul for all of those books that I have bought since the beginning of quarantine. I kind of divided it up into different categories just to kind of make it a little easier to follow along. So the first category I have is the Alex and Eliza trilogy, which that consists of Alex and Eliza and Love and War by Melissa de la Cruz. And these take place in 1777 in New York. I think it's based on the musical Hamilton, but it could just be based on history. I'm not really too sure. But basically, this follows Alex and Eliza's love story through the time of the American Revolution. So this first book takes place when the Schuyler family is throwing their annual grand ball, and Eliza is the middle Schuyler sister. So she would rather be helping the revolution, but she ends up attending this ball that her family throws and bumping into Alexander Hamilton. So it focuses on their love story and also kind of the start of the new country and the American Revolution and all of that stuff. So I ended up picking these up because I recently got back into my Hamilton phase, and the musical coming out on Disney Plus and all this stuff really just reminded me how much I love that whole story. So I found these in like the bargain section of a bookstore, so I picked them up. And I don't have the third one yet because I honestly just thought it was a duology until I saw on the second book. Maybe it's not the second book. I don't know. Somewhere on here it says that it's a trilogy. So I don't have the third book yet, but I definitely plan to pick that one up, and hopefully I'll be able to binge the series. So that's the end of the first category. My next category is Halloween reads, because I really love holidays. So I'm definitely hoping to get some festive reads for that month. The first book in that category is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco, which follows 17-year-old Audrey, who was born a lord's daughter, but she has a secret life where she sneaks out and goes to her uncle's lab and helps study forensic medicine. And she ends up working on this string of corpses that were brutally killed, which turns into an investigation of a serial killer. This book also contains real period photos from that time, and I think it really helps emphasize different parts of the story. So for example, let's try to find some. Let's see. So there's this picture. They're honestly kind of creepy, but it definitely fits the vibe of the story. And let's try to find one more. Like here's like a building, all that stuff. So that seems like a really cool element, and it definitely added something else to the story that made me want to pick it up. I have never really read thrillers or mysteries, but like I said, I'm really into holidays, and so I thought this sounded like the perfect Halloween read. And also this is part of a 4-book series, so as long as I really enjoy this one, I will definitely pick up the others in the series. Next, I have Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks, and this is actually a graphic novel about Deja and Josiah, who are seasonal best friends, because every year from September 1st to Halloween, they end up working together at the world's best pumpkin patch. This year is a little different because it's their senior year, which means it's their last shift together and it's their last goodbye. So they want to go out with a bang and have the best time that they possibly can. I decided to pick this one up because I have never read a graphic novel before. I also don't own any aside from this one. So I really thought a festive read would be what I needed to kind of get into graphic novels. My last Halloween read is Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and this is about this magical circus that appears out of thin air one night, and it's only open at nighttime. And within the circus, there is this intense competition between Celia and Marco, the two main characters. And they are two young magicians who have been trained since childhood to participate in this competition. And they don't realize that only one of them can be left standing. So you see them both fall for each other, and this creates a lot of chaos and puts everyone's lives at risk. I actually picked this one up because I had heard really great things about it from some booktubers I was watching, and I also really love books with magical elements and forbidden romances, so I'm really excited to see what happens in this one. My next category are book cover grabs, and these are books that initially it's their beautiful covers that drew me in, and then I either realized that they're books I've heard really good things about, or after reading the synopsis, I decided that I'd like to give it a shot. So the first book is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and this takes place in Orisha, where the soil used to hum with magic until this ruthless king had the Magi, I really don't know how to say it, but he had them all targeted and killed, which left the people without hope and our main character Zaylee without her mother. And Zaylee ends up getting a chance to bring back the magic and to fight against the monarchy with the help of a rogue princess. They have to outrun the crown prince, who is trying as hard as he can to make sure that magic disappears for good, while she also struggles to control her powers and her growing feelings for the enemy. And like I said, it was the book cover that drew me in initially, but then I realized that I had heard really good things about this duology, and I think the plot sounds really, really cool, so I'm definitely excited to pick this one up, hopefully soon. Next, I have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, and this is about Camino, who lives in the Dominican Republic, and she always looks forward to the summers because this is when her dad comes to visit her. But this year, she arrives at the airport to greet him, and she finds a group of people who are crying. And our other main character, Yahara, is called to the principal's office at her school in New York City, where she finds her mom, who tells her that her dad had died in a plane crash. So their father's death reveals all of these secrets, including the fact that the two of them are actually sisters. And it follows the sisters' journey through their mourning and grief, and also their newfound love for each other and forgiveness. Elizabeth Acevedo is actually a slam poet, so this whole book is written in prose, which is definitely new to me, so it'll be an interesting reading experience. But once again, it was the book cover that drew me in because it's so pretty. I mean, even the spine is beautiful, but even when you take off the dust jacket, it's still beautiful on the inside too. Like, this is the prettiest book I've ever seen. So, is definitely one of the reasons I picked this up. And then I'd also heard some booktubers saying good things about it, so I just knew I had to get it. And honestly, ever since I saw how beautiful this book was, every time I find another hardcover book I'm interested in, I take off the dust jacket and I hope to find something that looks just as beautiful. But honestly, so far I haven't found anything that even comes close. So let me know if you know of any books that look this pretty on the inside too, because it's kind of my favorite thing. My final book cover grab is And I Darken by Kiersten White, which follows Leda and her younger brother Radu, who were wrenched away from their home and raised in the Ottoman courts. And they end up living with this invisible sword above their heads, watching their every move, because their lineage, which makes them special, also makes them targets. And Leda spends her days wishing she could escape and go back to her home and claim her birthright, while Radu just wants a place where he can feel safe. So they meet the Sultan's defiant son, who makes Radu feel like he found his first true friend, and makes Leda wonder if he's worth her affection and passion. And this ends up creating a toxic triangle between the three of them that tests the bonds of love and loyalty to the breaking point. And I actually found this book in the bargain section of the bookstore I was in, and I thought the cover was really pretty. And after I read the synopsis, it sounded really interesting, so I decided to give it a chance because it was such a good price. So hopefully it ends up being a good book. My final book section or category is books with magical elements. And the first one that I have is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton, which follows the Rue family, who tends to be really foolish when it comes to love, and that leads to an ominous fate for the newest set of twins, Ava and Henry. Henry is a mute for most of his young life, and Ava was born with a set of bird wings. And this book follows 16-year-old Ava, who decides to dive into her family's past, but she's not really prepared for everything she finds and all the twisted motives she reveals. It tells the story of her great-grandmother, her grandmother, mother, and then finally herself. And I ended up picking this one up because a ton of booktubers I watch frequently, they constantly talk about how much they love this book, so they really convinced me to give it a chance. Next, I have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, which follows Alice and her mother, who spent their lives on the road always one step ahead of bad luck, until Alice's grandmother ends up dying on her Hazelwood estate. And her grandmother was actually the author of this dark fairy tale series. So once the grandmother dies, Alice's mother ends up being taken away by a figure who claims to be from her grandmother's series. And the only thing left behind is a note from her mother saying to stay away from the Hazelwood estate. But Alice really wants to save her mother, so she ends up working with her classmate Ellery Finch, who's a super fan of her grandmother's series, and they end up heading to the Hazelwood estate to find her mother and to figure out what went so wrong in their lives. This was another book in the bargain section. As you can tell, that's pretty much where I start all of my book shopping, is in the bargain section. But this was another book I found there, and I decided to pick it up because not only was it a great price, but I also think that dark fairy tales coming to life is a really interesting plot line, so I'm really excited to see where this goes. Speaking of fairy tales, I also picked up Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, which this is the Fall River Press edition, and this book is a compilation of over 200 fairy tales that were written by the Grimm brothers in the early 19th century. There's also a lot of illustrations throughout the book by Arthur Rackham, and in this book there's so many classics like Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Rapunzel, and so many more. And even though this is a super big, heavy book, and it'll take me a while to read, I really wanted all of my favorite fairy tales to be in one place, and the book cover is also really nice, which, that doesn't hurt. Plus it was on sale, and who can resist a good sale? My last book in this book haul is A Whole New World by Liz Braswell, and this is the first book in the Disney Twisted Tale series, which this one is based on Aladdin with a twist. So each book in this series is based on a different Disney story, but they all have a question that they kind of answer throughout the book. So, for example, this one, the question is, what if Aladdin had never found the lamp? So, in this book, you still have Aladdin as a street rat and Jasmine as a princess, but it shows how their world would have been different if Jafar found the lamp instead of Aladdin and he ended up rising to power. So the story really focuses on power and love and how one moment can change everything. I ended up picking this one up because I love all things Disney, and I really loved the idea of putting a twist on such a classic story. So it was definitely an easy choice for me to pick this one up. Alright, so those are all the books I've bought since the beginning of quarantine that I haven't been able to read yet. And actually my birthday was just a few weeks ago, so I also got a lot more books for that, but I figured it would be better to split it into 2 different videos because I think it would just be easier for everyone involved. So definitely keep an eye out for my birthday book haul, which should be coming out next. And please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe because I would really appreciate it. And also make sure you turn on notifications because I have no idea when I'll upload next because I really don't have a schedule figured out yet. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.